At this time, I'll call to order the Monday, I got the wrong one. The April 13th, 2026 City Council, City of Clemson Planning Commission meeting. I apologize, guys. I just wanted you to know the meeting's being live streamed and it's recorded on YouTube. Due to an emergency and the procedures that are outlined in our bylaws, Commissioner Hyatt, can you hear us? Commissioner Hyatt?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay.
Yes,
He's
I can
joined
hear
by
you.
video link due to an emergency. I'll introduce the rest of our commissioners. Commissioner Cumby. Commissioner Rice could not be here tonight. Commissioner Yoder, Commissioner Franks, Commissioner Crowley, and I'm Herb Tyler, serving as chair for 2026. We have a quorum. We're going to begin tonight, and I would just like to remind everybody of the process in case you hadn't been here. I see a lot of students here tonight. We're glad to have you. During our process, we will be discussing 3 action items tonight. One of them is a plan unit development. There's always a workshop concept presentation. Then there's an informal public meeting that's been held. And then an optional workshop and formal consideration. I'd like to remind everybody, if you need assisted listening devices, Ms. Kelly Roach has those available here. If you need those and cannot hear, let her know. On the planning team is Art Holbrooks, city planner, Jacob Peabody, and our assistant administrator and planning director, Nathan Woods. And of course, Kelly Roach, our recording secretary. We couldn't do that. I'd like to remind everybody here that none of the planning commissioners is a volunteer committee. None of the planning commissioners are employees of the city of Clemson. And part of the purpose as we begin this and the rules of procedure, and everybody has done a great job of this, and we want to make sure we continue to do so. We want to treat everybody with honor, dignity, and respect. I understand in meetings like this, there can be a lot of things, but everybody deserves honor, dignity, and respect. We don't need any moans, groans, clapping, etc. Please don't put us in a position to have to ask somebody to leave. And at this time, before every planning commission, we have a public session. Now, this public session is for things under our purview that are not on tonight's agenda. So tonight's agenda, if it is not on there and there's something within the purview of the Planning Commission, I'm going to go ahead and open our public session. And if you would like to, when you come up, there's a sign-in sheet. Ms. Kelly asked me to make sure to ask everybody to please print or sign legibly so she can have that, and they put those in the meeting. So our public session is open. One more chance. Seeing that there are no comments, we'll declare this part of the meeting closed. We're going to move on to the adoption of minutes from our March 9th, 2026 regular meeting. Have all the commissioners had the opportunity to review the minutes?
Yes.
Are there any edits, omissions, or anything else that are noted?
Move for approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? So moved.
And I agree.
Thank you. So now we're going to proceed to an informational briefing from the Assistant City Administrator and Director of Planning, Nathan Woods.
I'll be brief tonight. I wanted to talk to you guys about the why behind the staff reports you receive every month. Oftentimes we get caught up in the specifics of a single site plan or a particular set of concerns, but as the planning director, I always want to take a view out higher and always zooming out to the 30,000 foot view. The 2045 comprehensive plan you have in front of you, that was approved unanimously by this commission and formally adopted by our city council on February 16th, 2026. Think of our comprehensive plan not as a static book on a shelf, but as the lens through which every single application must be viewed that comes before this commission. When a project comes before you, I'd like to challenge us all, including my staff, to stop asking questions like, do we like this project? And start asking, does this project advance the specific goals of the comprehensive plan? If the comprehensive plan is our North Star, then our job tonight and every night is to check that compass. We should be looking for three things as before every vote. Alignment. Does this proposal fit with the future land use map we spent over 2 years debating with the public? 2, infrastructure. Does this project support the density and infrastructure goals this plan and this commission has already committed to? And then 3, I want us to think about the burden of proof. If a project contradicts this plan, the burden of proof isn't on us to find a reason to like it. The burden is on the applicant to prove why we should deviate from our community's long-term vision. When we use this plan as our primary checklist, we do 2 things. We create clarity for developers so they know what to expect, and we create certainty for our citizens. It transforms our work from a series of disconnected yeses and nos decisions into a single cohesive effort to build the city we promised we would create. Let's create the document, let's keep that document front and center tonight and in the future as we move through this and future agendas. Thank you.
Thank you for the update. As Assistant City Administrator Nathan Woods was pointing out, you can find this also. If you do not have a copy, he passed out a copy to each commission member tonight to be able to reference of the 2045 comprehensive plan. And so that is on the City of Clemson's website that was adopted. So we'll move on tonight to our first action item. The first item on our agenda tonight is PUD 00526-2026 201 Pine Street. Staff, are there any update reports or changes?
No, sir.
Okay. So I'd like to ask a member from CRG or 53 Group if they'd like to come up and update the commissioners on their proposal. As a reminder, you have 10 minutes. If we need an extension, we can cross that when we get there.
Great. Well, good evening, commissioners. As you know, I'm Allison Mills. I'm Senior Vice President of Development at CRG, the developer of this project alongside the 53 Group and our architecture team, the Lamar Johnson Collaborative. So in our last public workshop in March, we presented the updated project and also got additional feedback from on a couple areas from the community. And again, I've included the meeting minutes from all the comments made by the commission in the back of this presentation as well, just for transparency. So at the last meeting, the key areas of focus we heard from the community were around traffic, connectivity, and pedestrian safety, how trash and loading is handled and how that interfaces with the neighborhood, and further details about the landscaping along Hedgerow. So since then, we have updated our traffic study, which is included in our full PD application, to reflect the reduced size of this project because it previously had not been updated, to show the reduced number of trips that this application and this project will create, as well as ultimately how the level of service surround at all the intersections surrounding the site will remain at their current level of service. Most are still at an A or better. And so this traffic study, as I mentioned, is also included in the application. We also developed an additional rendering of the view down Hedgerow to dive further into the landscaping and the pedestrian improvements that we're doing on this frontage. So as you can see in this kind of before and rendering after, by removing the guardrail, regrading, and setting the building back this 12 to 14 feet from the property line at Hedgerow, we are able to introduce some more robust plantings, some full growth trees along the entire frontage, and a 5-foot sidewalk with new curb. And then I think also importantly, we're also burying that electric line, which will really improve the pedestrian experience and the views towards the building from the neighborhood. We also heard questions about how trash and loading would be serviced, so we developed this additional view just further up Pine Street to show where this happens. So our loading bays exist behind that overhead door, which is called out in that image, which is always closed when not in use. And we also set this door a little bit further back from the sidewalk than the rest of the building at the ground floor, so helps conceal it a little bit more within the building, within the pedestrian experience. Trash is completely stored in a separate room behind this door, and so during trash day, trash pickup, trash truck can come in, the overhead door opens, and they're able to service trash directly from the building. So there will never be any dumpsters permanently staged in the neighborhood. So just to summarize quickly the overall project before you, the northern part of the project starts at 3 stories along Hedgerow, which is the same height as the existing structures, and then as the site drops gradually down toward North Clemson, the building steps to 4 and 5 stories and maintains that datum across the entire site down to North Clemson. So this is a substantially smaller project than the application that you had seen last year and others that have come before this commission, with a maximum of 555 beds and 205 resident parking stalls, plus the 31 public parking stalls that will be accessible to the public as they access the public space and retail component here as well. So starting at the Hedgerow side, I'm just going to walk around the building a little bit just to kind of get an overview of the exterior design and how it sits within its context. So this is the 3-story side of the building. This is the side that was reduced to maintain the existing scale and townhouse quality of the development. Parking here is also completely screened from the first floor elevation, so no light pollution or noise from vehicles into the neighborhoods will face north. And again, you can see the landscape kind of at a further distance and the sidewalk that wraps around the building here. This is the view from Oak Street, showing how the building sits behind the existing apartments and condominiums here, but also that architectural language that was developed with the BAR in previous meetings of base, middle, and top really wraps the entire building, so there is really no back to this project. And then turning the corner to North Clemson, here we introduce those 2 lower levels as the site drops and have 6,000 square feet of mixed-use retail space and office space included. And with all the new landscaping and grading, we're also able to introduce outdoor seating and gathering opportunities for the public facing Tiger Park and supporting the local businesses that we intend to lease to here. And then here is the view from Pine and North Clemson, where we have the shaded kind of terraced public plaza space. And then zooming in, this is the lower level residential entry located right off the public plaza and off of Pine Street. You can see the additional detail that we've incorporated in the covered plaza with the mirrored canopy expression that we're proposing to make this just a really a more fun and dynamic space to be in. And then walking up into the plaza, this is the view from the public courtyard, where there are more opportunities for now uncovered outdoor seating, dining for the retail, and this visual connection to campus and the stadium. And then going back out, here's another view of the corner, a little close-up view of the corner of North Clemson and Pine. It also illustrates the new lay-by lane that we're adding to North Clemson to help support any pickups and drop-offs from the building and also from the retail that we're providing as well. So lastly, I just want to wrap up by saying this project was developed, as you know, to include some substantial public benefits that were developed alongside all the input gathered from the commission, the neighborhood, and the city. So in addition to the over 12,000 square feet of new public plazas and park space that the project provides, the 6,000 square feet of community retail that I mentioned, and the 31 public parking spaces in the garage, this project will also deliver some substantial pedestrian and utility infrastructure related initiatives to the neighborhood, which in total amount to over $2.5 million worth of improvements. And I'll describe a few of those just in a bit more detail. So we will be upgrading the existing, as part of this project, the existing cast iron water line to a new 8-inch water line all along North Clemson Avenue from this site to Wigington Street. This was cited to us multiple times as a critical upgrade needed for the city to ensure that local businesses and property owners along this route and downstream from this route will have improved services for their homes and businesses. And then we are also making substantial improvements to North Clemson itself. We will be doubling the width of the existing sidewalk, which you can see in some of the sketches and sections that we've provided here as well. That's on the north side of North Clemson Ave from our site all the way to Hillcrest Avenue, as well as adding a new curb and gutter along both sides of the street. And I know in the public meeting at the last March Commission meeting, there was a question about where this width was coming from, and it's all coming from within the right-of-way. So there's no impact to private property around this. But we felt, along with the city, that it was very important as pedestrian activity grows along North Clemson Avenue, that this neighborhood and the community have this safe and connected path to downtown Clemson. And then the 5 yellow dots in this image as well are the 5 crosswalks that are today not ADA compliant, but that we are upgrading to be ADA compatible to ensure that they are accessible to everyone. So thank you again for the time this evening. I appreciate all the time and the effort the commission and the community has spent with us working on this development and this application.
Thank you for your presentation. Thank you for your update. So at this point, this is an action item. We're going to ask for any members of the public that would like to comment on this agenda item. If so, please come forward to the podium, state your name and address for record keeping, and sign in. And as a reminder, each member of the public has 3 minutes to comment on the proposal before us tonight. And this section will last no longer than 45 minutes.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Johannes Schmidt, 112 Folger Street, and I first want to thank the developers to listen to us and to take our concerns seriously. I do want to speak about the safety in the neighborhood. I feel that the traffic issue has not been sufficiently addressed by the proposal. The proposal assumes that the exit from the building, which is then a right-way only, will lead all traffic towards 93. The right only will not ensure that people coming towards the building will come and use the entrance from 93. But they will make use of Folger Street, and they will also make use of Hedgewood Lane, so the back alley that comes out right at that intersection of Pine Street. The other aspect that I feel has not been addressed is that we will have an increase not only in car traffic, but all other kind of traffic. It's pedestrian traffic. We're going to have to deal with scooters, e-bikes, skateboards, and so on. And while I don't mind having people, skateboarding through the neighborhood, my son is a skateboarder as well, I am just concerned that in a neighborhood where you have so few sidewalks, that the mixing of all these different modes of transportation with additional cars, with additional foot traffic, is going to create a safety issue. A lot of the streets in the neighborhood do not have a sidewalk, and we have a deep ditch in front of our house during football games. I'm out there helping people who fall in the ditch because, there is so much traffic and it's hard for pedestrians. So that's the first point I want to make, and the other point I really want to make really, really quickly. I want to thank the commission that you recommended the overlay, and I do want to point out that we have, if I'm not mistaken, please correct me if I'm wrong, that we already have ordinance in place for a buffer zone. And from my point of view, and I hope that I'm not representing this falsely, but this building would violate the buffer zone both in terms of landscaping and also how far it is set back. It's the sidewalk towards the neighborhood is, if I understand correctly, 14 feet. We saw that in the presentation here. And a building that height has to be set back further than 14 feet. Is that correct? I think it's like 30 feet or 40 feet, depending on the building height. So I thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm Nancy Spiller. I live at 210 Edgewood. I'm here to speak on behalf of myself as well as Donna McCubbin asked me to read a letter she had sent as well, and I think I can do both in my 3 minutes. She says, I'm sorry I'm not able to be present. I do want to share my concerns regarding the student housing project. According to the City of Clemson website, efforts towards sustainability are essential to building a city that will thrive in the present and the future. Also stated, programs and initiatives aimed at improving our environment and reducing our ecological footprint will help ensure a vibrant community for generations to come. This proposal is in direct conflict with the stated efforts to be sustainable and reduce our ecological footprint. To demolish an 11-year-old apartment complex is wasteful and abhorrent. The present apartments fit into and have no negative impact on the surrounding neighborhood. They are appropriate for the space and location. The Clemson Next strategic plan designated Downtown West to be maximized for density and student housing development. This property is not included in the Downtown West development area. The Downtown West area is bounded by Highway 93, Addison Lane, and North Clemson Avenue. This property is north of the area outlined. And to indicate that this property is somewhat topographically separated from nearby traditional single-family neighborhoods is absurd. That separation is a one-lane, one-way alley that's approximately 10 feet wide. With maximized density proposed for the designated Downtown West, it seems excessive to include additional property in that mix. Furthermore, we presently have 3 large complexes under construction, the Hub, Moda, and the complex presently undergoing site preparation on College. I don't remember the total number of beds, but I do know it's a very large number. We truly have no concept of the impact of these 3 complexes on the town and the neighborhoods. We see a great deal of student pass through traffic in our neighborhoods. Parts of our neighborhood do not have sidewalks and adequate lighting. Our neighborhood includes children who can be vulnerable to high volume, high speed traffic. Another large capacity complex is in the neighborhood and is so contradictory to the nature of everything surrounding it, and does not comply with the stated city goals for sustainability, should not be approved. I would agree with Donna's points, and in addition, I would say this would also be an intrusion of commercial property into a residential area, residential neighborhood, which is definitely not in support of preserving the neighborhood. And as a development has to include an existing building to meet the requirements for planned development. That seems a bit absurd to approve that kind of request. And to have a 6 to 7 story building on North Clemson is way out of scale with the surrounding neighborhood. And I would just, in conclusion, say that retail in the neighborhood is not a benefit.
Thank you.
Rupert, 206 North Ensign Avenue. This really should not be approved for one reason alone. And this is very important to hear out. Please listen to me. This committee passed the overlay not too long ago, overlay protections of NC1, NC2. All right, what did it specify? It specified a setback distance. As Johannes pointed out, my neighbor pointed out, it depends on the height of the building. I believe it's 30 or 40 feet, he said. And that is correct. That's what was mentioned in the presentation that was presented by our planners. And here we are debating something which is violating the policy that you put forward and voted in favor of. It's not, it needs to follow what was passed earlier. It needs to follow the setback being roughly 30 or 40 feet. When I looked at the slideshow, well, that wasn't 30 or 40 feet back on Hedgerow Lane to protect the neighborhood to the north. And I don't see how you can honestly, I'm saying this, it's disingenuous to pass a policy today or this action item when it's violating what you voted for on the protected zone. The whole idea of the protection zone is to create a buffer. And this violates it, that one technicality, and maybe other technicalities, I don't know. But that should be a showstopper. These people have to go back and work on a new design that is in accordance with what you passed with the overlay. That's my point.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anybody else? Please.
My name is Judy Baker, and I live on Strawberry Lane. And I just have two questions for Nathan Wood. Did we mishear last time at the last meeting when you said Clemson has enough beds now? That's what you said. Clemson has enough beds now. So why do we even have to talk about more beds in an area that's already serviced? And also, when she was talking about widening North Clemson Boulevard, well, you'd have to widen it in order to add more sidewalk. If you're not going onto private properties, she said you wouldn't encroach on private properties. So how are you going to widen North Clemson, which is already a thoroughfare? I mean, there's a lot of speeding that goes on there. And it just doesn't make any sense. We just seem to be running around in circles and just grabbing our own tails. So, thank you. Excuse me.
Comments, Ms. Fair?
And I'll say what your address. Okay. My question to Mr. Woods, was there an answer? You did say that, correct?
We don't normally question and answer here, but I will say that I believe that's taken out of context. I certainly wouldn't have said that we have enough beds in Clemson. If I did, it was in the context that I think that beds are not an appropriate metric to judge projects on. And if I were talking about, in regards to your question of North Clemson, every property has a right-of-way in front of it. This would simply remain in the right-of-way. There would be no taking of private property.
So how would it be wide? Okay, that's enough, thank you.
I'm sure y'all all know me by now, but my name is Gay Miller. I now reside at 210 Strawberry Lane, and I have a lot, I wish I could have 10 minutes like the developers. I have a lot of things to say on this subject, but one of the things that I've noticed since living with my mom is the traffic that comes through Strawberry Lane, not necessarily down Strawberry Lane, but Oak Street, North Clemson Avenue, and all that kind of stuff. You know, it's cars running stop signs, traffic backed up at the light coming out by the Presbyterian Church down there coming onto College Avenue. Sunday morning, the traffic was backed up to the Catholic Church. And if we have all this student housing built on North Clemson Avenue, that's going to mean even more traffic through the neighborhood, more students not stopping at stop signs, more students racing down the roads, more students just not caring about what goes on in a neighborhood that has families with children, people walking their dogs, all kinds of stuff. It's just, you know, it's insane to me. And I also have a question is, how big is the property at North Clemson Avenue and Pine Street? And I know y'all don't like to answer questions, and then, you know, one of the community benefits was the widening, doubling the width of the sidewalk on North Clemson Avenue. Is it going to come from both sides? Is it going to come out in the road? You know, where's it going to be? I don't see any benefits to the long-term residents or the neighborhoods that the people back in our neighborhood live in, you know. And another thing I have is question, like you say, we can go on the website and print out a copy of the next plan. Well, that's like tons of pages long. Like, who has that much ink in their printer? Like, why can't we have a copy of it? Like, my mom doesn't even use a computer, so how is she supposed to see it? And I know there's probably plenty of other people out here that don't do computers and don't have a chance to look at the Clemson Next Plan. I mean, I look at it online, but anyway, it's just a catastrophe. And if y'all vote for this, it's just like poking a stick in the residents up there's eye.
I'm CC Davis. I live at 149 Folger Street. Thank you for your time. One thing I want to say before I get started, every time I've been to these meetings, and I know at City Council, they mention limiting the number. Like, at some point, I'm waiting to hear if you're repeating something that's already been said, we're not going to hear any. We just want to hear new information. And tonight it's that we have 45 minutes. And I think what I would say to that, and I recognize that you all are in volunteer positions, but sometimes I see people that come to these meetings. It's hard for us to drum up business in our neighborhood sometimes to get people to attend, because the sentiment that I hear from our neighbors is they're not going to do anything, so what's the use in coming? And then we come and people don't have the opportunity, even if their bit of information is redundant. I think it's really important that you see the number of people that are here, that you see a face and a street address, so that you know that they are coming out against the said project. So that's one thing I want to say, because I don't really have any new information to share. We've talked about this, you've heard our concerns. I will say tonight, when I was listening to the presentation, for me it comes down to, if this goes forward, the message I'm getting is that it's the $2.5 million in improvements that are on the line. And while I recognize that we might need a better water line and maybe wider streets on North Clemson Avenue, it really does nothing to provide benefit to the rest of the neighborhood once you move off North Clemson. As Johanna said, we have deep ditches, we have no sidewalks, we have young children, we have tons of traffic through our neighborhood, and we have yet to see the impact of what these new improvements or these new projects downtown are going to bring, with people that cut through the neighborhood, even if they're not going to Pine Street, but they're living in one of the new developments and coming through the other side, especially as we see Clemson Avenue cut off, which I have said before when I've stood up, I work at the university, I love the students, that's why I'm in the, why we're here. But I do have concerns about this one small area that we have we have a neighborhood community, and the renderings squelch all of that feeling when you look at that 7-story building. So I really am trying to figure out why, even with the improvement of the overlay, we're still having to argue against this. And to me, again, it seems to come down to the fact that the city really wants the $2.5 million for the improvements, and that's concerning, because while it might benefit the water line and widen a sidewalk in a very limited area, that benefits the students and the student population walking to downtown. It doesn't really do anything for the majority of the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Stephen Martin. I live on Folger Street. I've lived there for 32 years. We moved to Clemson because I grew up in a university town. We wanted to be close to the university, and we love the energy that brings. So we love being close. We've been there 32 years, right? So we're very much pro-university, pro the energy that brings. And the only point that I'm going to make is we're getting out of balance. I think when you look at growth, everybody needs growth. Clemson needs growth. But we need a balance between nice residential areas, green spaces, rental property, businesses, and you need a balance. And what I've seen over the last 5 years from a planning standpoint is we're now, that seesaw balance is teetering over to the rental property into higher density areas. And I don't think that's what we really want in Clemson. And so it's not this one specific project or this one specific location. Yeah, I think if you look at it in total from a balance standpoint, I think we're pretty out of balance right now. And we're going further in that direction. The neighborhoods are important. The safety of the neighborhood is important. The traffic, all those things that we've heard are all important. But I think if you drive through the neighborhood and drive down Hedgerow Lane or drive around Folger and then go down Pine Street, you'll see that this is just another move in an out of balance situation. Thank you.
Please tell me already. Brett Holsky, 106 Folger Street. Come up here, we got a lot of things we can talk about, and there's a lot of different opinions about why this is a bad idea, why this doesn't fit, why this isn't what we want. And frankly, I'm going to offer you maybe just a slightly different perspective today, because I work in construction. I manage construction projects, mostly industrial and institutional, some commercial over the last 13 years now, residential before that. I'm standing here and I've listened to these guys come in. I work with developers all the time, and I can tell you that they're driven by profit and profit alone. And I can tell you that when it comes down to the fine details of where they can save a buck, they do, and they will every time. They're not here for the city. They're not here to solve your problem. They're not here to make this community better. They're here to give you a project, to sell you a project so that they can make a buck. And that's what they're gonna do. And when they're done with it, they're gonna sell it, or they're gonna reap profits, they're gonna go back out of town, they're gonna go back out of state, and it's a done deal. They don't care. They're gonna tell you that they're doing good things, they're gonna tell you that they're making the place better. They come out with these beautiful renderings that are just, you know, a June afternoon with everything in bloom. And I can tell you, they are grossly misrepresenting the fact that that slope that that entire site is on continues further up Pine and further up Folger. That perspective absolutely negates that. And I can tell you that they're looking at the cute shot right down hedgerow takes advantage of my backyard. Those are my trees that I planted in order to screen the existing space in the existing building. Currently, my first floor looks directly into the existing third floor of the apartment that's in the back. We are on the same elevation. Effectively, will be the effective second floor, since the first now is set back far enough that it is beyond and lower. If they move that building up, I would be looking in the new third floor. Okay? On top of that, they're going to set two more on top. Setting them back is not going to hide any of it from all of us just further up the block. So from Folger Street, you're going to be looking at the top floor, because that's the perspective. The guys that are on second floor and third floor that have two stories, and then across the street, you'll see above, you'll see the top. It's not making it any better for us. It's not hiding the size. It's not hiding the mass. It looks a little bit better on one single wall on hedgerow. It's a minor. I don't remind, you guys, I appreciate what you do. I appreciate you being here. I know that you get a lot of flack from a lot of us, and it's not comfortable, and it's not nice, because we're emotional. We're emotional because we're invested. We're invested financially, we're invested emotionally. This is where we do, and our time of our lives has been chosen to be here in this space. We're not going anywhere. We don't want to go anywhere. We want to preserve what we invested in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Jill Shellnut. I live at 100 Dogwood. So I'm right in that sweet spot between Wigginton and Folger. My neighbor Chip Egan likes to say that Dogwood Drive is the best kept secret. We're sort of like tucked in. We're very fortunate that we don't have the thoroughfare of North Clemson Avenue or Folger, so we're in a lovely spot. But I will say that even the traffic from the Catholic Church, for example, which is generally like once or twice a week, the number of cars that we deal with on Dogwood Drive, coming off of Wigginton, coming off of, all the little surrounding streets, is, one day a week, maybe twice a week if it's a holiday, or, Wednesday evening services and that kind of thing, it's crazy. We have to literally go around like the wrong way onto our street to get around cars that are parked just to go into church. And again, this is 1 day a week, and nothing against the church. I love the Catholic Church. Several of my friends are members there, family, friends. But I'm just making the point that for 1 day a week, it is crazy the hundreds of people that are in and out of the church services and the parking that happens as a result. So we're talking about just down the other end of my street, putting up to 7 stories, 555 beds, I think is the newest number, with parking for only 200 and some of them, so 40% of those would have parking. So my question is, when all these students have their friends over and they have visitors, or they say, screw it, there's no parking available at my house, I'm gonna go park on Dogwood, or I'm just gonna park my car somewhere else. We've had a car towed out of our driveway. We've had people show up in our property, you know, they think they're getting into my house, which is their apartment, because they've stumbled the wrong way through downtown. So my point is the parking. To someone's point earlier about the number of beds, I think it's the number of parking spaces that really concerns me. So it leads me to think that if we can only accommodate 200 and, I think the number was 220 parking spaces or something, I'm trying to look back. If we can only accommodate that many in parking, either we need to redo that ordinance about parking or look at that, or reduce the number of beds, or just leave the darn thing how it is right now, sitting on Pine Street, the townhouses that are there, and parking is not a problem right now. So I also want to make sure to mention that my neighbor at 109 Folger Street could not be here, Jennifer Partridge. She and James both really wanted to be here because they would be looking at that one image that you all showed that was like from looking directly at it. Like their front porch is lovely, they're renovating their home, and they will stare directly at these 7 stories in the air. So she wanted to say, please don't let them put that in front of my house. So thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. My name is Doreen Heimlich, 110 Folger Street, on the corner of Pine Street. I feel I'm quite directly affected by this huge proposed development, which seems to be completely incompatible with the established residential neighborhood that we have. Also, it bothers me that my backyard abuts a hedge but on the other side of Pine. It looks to me like the back of the building is going, the setback doesn't seem to be far enough back. It seems to be awfully close to the edge of hedgerow lane. Also, the lack of parking for the number of beds that are proposed, that only causes another traffic problem with noisy motor scooters and skateboards, which also is not compatible with a peaceful neighborhood. So it's just, I think everybody else has mentioned all our concerns, so I won't belabor you with more, but those are my main concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to speak? So while we're waiting, and if you do want to speak, I certainly want to give you the opportunity to do that. One of the things, and I mentioned this at most of them, or all of them actually, since it had passed for my civic platform for written comments to Planning Commission. The rules were changed over a year ago that noon Friday is a deadline. So the commissioners have the opportunity to have the comments and absorb those. We do stick with that deadline. So last meeting, we did have a letter submitted after the deadline, and we read it at this meeting, and it's from Mr. Brett Holsky. Dear Planning Commission, regretfully, I'm unable to attend this evening's meeting in person. I've therefore submitted this letter for public reading during the appropriate time. The 3 minutes provided for comments on all the items not nearly enough to express my concerns regarding the proposal of the PD project at 201 Pine. The full 4th minute provided by Herb Tyler when appropriate notwithstanding. As such, I focus my past comments to most egregious concerns in hopes that they are heard and I might appeal to you with my arguments. Upon this project introduction last year, my comments remained oriented towards size and use of this project. You have, and I certainly will, continue to hear protests on the physical side, density, and use from my fellow residents. I'll summarize mine here, but do understand that this does not begin to reach the level of detailed protest I have. The size of the building is oppressively large compared to existing structures that were built there just 10 years ago. Built then to maximize allowable current zoning, while the design team have made revision to the design, reducing the size of the upper floors. They've not significantly changed the footprint or visual mass. The focus on the view from hedgerow distracts from the impact of this structure from other points in the neighborhood. The graphics presented conveniently ignore the fact that grade continues to rise beyond Folger. I would very much like to see a graphic representation of the building from Folger Street directly behind it, as well as the intersection of Strawberry and Folger. I'd like to remind you, regardless of the changes that they make, you don't owe them any concessions of your own. They're here for profit and will flip this project to out-of-town owners as soon as feasible. So that was submitted last time. We've had 2 comments that were submitted. One was submitted at 3:42. Friday it'll be read at the next meeting, and one was submitted today at 1:05 p.m. But there was another one that was submitted Friday, April 10th. And it says, my name is William Ralston. I'm a current student at Clemson University. I'm writing to support the proposed development at 201 Pine Street. From a student perspective, one of the biggest challenges in Clemson is finding housing that is both close to campus and designed for how students actually live. Many of us rely on walking, biking, or transit, so location and safety matter a lot. This project stands out because it is within walking distance to campus and includes improvements that directly benefit students and the community, like wider sidewalks, better crosswalks, and bike access. Having more students live closer to campus can also reduce traffic and parking demand in other neighborhoods. I also think the design adds something new to Clemson. The mix of housing, retail, and public open space creates a place where students and residents can interact, not just another isolated apartment complex. Spaces like the public courtyard and outdoor seating areas will make this more active and welcoming. It's clear from the updates the development team listened to feedback by reducing the size and making change to better fit the neighborhood. As a student, I appreciate seeing that kind of responsiveness. Clemson is growing, and projects like this help make that growth more thoughtful, walkable, and connected. Thank you for your time. Sincerely, William Rasmussen. Any other comments?
Dogwood Drive as well. And I would say to, first for that letter, if the student will wait, there's 3 others coming. So the hub, the Ramble, and the Moda will be here pretty soon. So he'll have plenty of new innovative spaces to come to. Look, I went to Clemson. I love living downtown Clemson. Love the activity, love the atmosphere. But just like any city, you don't infiltrate certain areas, and that area that these folks are looking for to basically what others have said, build it, get it approved, build it, move on, flip it. I mean, the same thing happened at the Ramble. Man, put the deal together with the land, flipped it. Now another company's building it. I think everybody's aware of that. If not, that's exactly what happened there. So that's my other question, and this is something that you know, some of the other folks and the community keep asking, and maybe we can answer it a little bit, is how many times do they need to keep coming back before this either gets squished, or is it the city trying to get the $2.5 million incentive out of this? Is the city incentivizing them to keep coming back with a redo, or no redo? It's the same proposal. That's just the questions that keep coming up in the neighborhood. So, that's all I've got. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to speak?
I'm just going to raise my hand. I know there was another submission. It was submitted last meeting, and I didn't hear you read it. So my daughter, who is in Virginia, who has property submitted, and it hadn't been read. So I just was checking to see if we're doing things wrong. We have plenty of folks that are submitting, and I'm not sure I've heard them.
How did she submit it?
On the website, she went in the meeting minutes.
Did she put it on the planning?
There's links on there, and it says you got to submit it by a certain time. I'd have to ask, but I'm just concerned if hers is, maybe there's some other folks that are submitting them. And that's the only reason I raised the concern.
What's her name?
Lauren Crouch. But I think my main concern is that if there's others that aren't coming through correctly.
I mean, that's,
I can't. I'll get with our IT director when I can't remedy it tonight, but I can certainly check and.
Yeah, no worries. I was just not just hers, but I was just making sure.
Absolutely, and if they're, although I can't read it tonight, I can attach it to the record.
No.
Absolutely.
No worries.
you have plenty of opportunity. Would you like to speak?
I'm not using my full 3 minutes. I could speak.
No, sir.
Okay, all right.
Yes, ma'am. Would you like to speak? Would you like to speak?
I'm too shy. Sorry. It's okay.
Hi. Thank you so much for listening to us. I live at 109, I'm Ethel Pettigrew, I live at 109 Hillcrest Avenue, which is not directly related to this, but again, it's related to the neighborhood which is involved in this. I live on the green space, which sounds to me like it's where you're gonna steal the sidewalk space. You're gonna have to steal some space off that road, and it's gonna come out of the green space, which I want to protect in every way, shape, or form I can do it, because I can't see how you can widen that sidewalk without stealing some of the green space. That is supposed to be protected in our neighborhood, which makes our neighborhood so much better and protects
Hillcrest and some other streets, a lot of the traffic. Granted, we have a lot of traffic on Hillcrest. We live in,
Y'all know, I'm right behind student housing. I'm not against our students. I'm not against any of that. I live downtown because I like to be amongst the students. I just think that the scale of this one messes so badly with our neighborhood. What is there meets the aesthetics of our neighborhood. Nobody complains about it. Yeah, we complained when it was built, but it fits in. 555 beds at that location doesn't fit in anymore. And I just want y'all to be aware of that. Just think about if that was your street, that it's affecting you may not live in our neighborhood, some of you may, but you just need to be aware that that's going to change a lot of traffic, even on Hillcrest, because we get a lot of traffic, is where and I both deal with. We wave at the students as they walk by, scoot by. We have to stop them from taking their scooters through the green space, but hey, that's the city's job, and we just keep telling you when to do it. But I think the scale of this is just too large for the neighborhood, and what is there, granted, they have a right to look at their property and do what that they think is best, but you have the right and should be looking at what is best for the neighborhood and the city of Clemson, not what's best for them and their bottom line. And I do hope that you will take that into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to speak?
Don McCormick. I live on North Clemson Avenue. I understand people want to make money. But this proposed project not only does nothing to enhance this neighborhood, but it detracts from it, the feeling of this neighborhood. I live in one of the oldest houses in Clemson. It's 100 years old, as a lot of the people are in our neighborhood. And it's just such a lovely space. If you've ever driven down Hedgerow, that little alleyway, I remember when they paved it, it got a lot more traffic, but it's a beautiful space. There's people across the alleyway that grow these beautiful peonies and flowers, and it's not even, you can't even see it from their yard. They just grow them because they're beautiful and they love having them there. But it's become just such it's just gotten crazy. And the neighborhood, it doesn't fit. It just doesn't fit. And I don't think that anybody that I know within a couple blocks radius, they pretty much feel the same way I do. Ironically, we're in some of the oldest houses, and we didn't get included in the historic overlay, but that's for another day. But when I first heard that they were going to tear down those apartments to put up something else, my first thought was, how wasteful. That was just built not that long ago. How can that be? But apparently profit it makes it worthwhile to do that. I don't know, but I hope that you listen and take into thoughtful consideration the people that live in that immediate area. I really feel for the gentleman that planted those trees. I watched him plant those trees to have a shield. And I can't imagine living where he lives. That would be a total affront. But please thoughtfully consider what we all have come to say tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to speak? I want to make sure everybody gets an opportunity.
Good evening. Sorry, my name is Annabelle Nilsson, and I am a Clemson student. So I'm here observing from my law class, and what I noticed is that there is a crisis, and not just any crisis, but there is a crisis with housing, there is a crisis with parking that pretty much every student could agree with. I've been here for the past 2 years, and while I was on campus, we had a lot of problems with the dorms. Our dorms were moldy. I was paying, I think, like $12,000 a year just to live in like a dorm with like black mold, and me and my roommates were constantly getting sick. I understand the want to like open new apartments for Clemson students, but there's just a problem I personally have experienced, my friends have experienced with moving into these new built apartments that are just so quickly built that they aren't properly managed. It's just cheaply built because it's wanting to be built very quickly. And I mean, a lot of these people, I heard them mention a lot of just like concerns in regards to like public safety and traffic, and that's something I can personally attest to. So even on campus, I mean, I love Clemson a lot, but I've almost got personally ran over by cars with students in them from just recklessly driving. And on campus, we don't even have enough parking. I mean, I heard you all were mentioning 500 beds, but only 200 parking spots. Well, we don't even have enough parking spots on campus. So a lot of students go and park on like Dogwood over by like the Catholic Church. And I strongly believe that if you all build like this apartment complex, this is just only gonna make it worse. So I understand that you all want to do what's best for Clemson, and in order to do what's best for Clemson, I humbly ask you to listen to the people. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anybody else that would like to make a comment? We'll make sure allow enough time for people who would like to speak to speak. Give it another minute. See anybody else? Last call. Just want to make sure we had enough. So we'll close out the public comments. Thank everybody for speaking. Thank you for your participation throughout these months of coming in and looking at this. Do any of the commissioners have any comments? Commissioner Crowley. Any comments?
I mean, if somebody else has got something they want us to dive into, that's fine, but, yeah, I found that here. It's, page 5 under 107 site, third paragraph, second line between Oak Street and pedestrian access. That's just a grammatical thing. This one's been tough for me because it is a different design. There are some new things they're offering. There are some city benefits. I don't know that it's necessarily the project that is an issue. It's the process of putting it there and the way it's being gone about. We have, the new comp plan it's got a whole area marked over there for high density housing, and this would be a great catalyst project to make sure we don't lose momentum in developing a zoning district that we're looking to do over there. Not to mention and I know it's a separate deeded piece of property that's individual, but it's a townhome that's part of one development and rezoning it into another development. I know the restrictions and everything. There's a lot in it, but it's more about the process of making this fit and making it legal that I have an issue with versus the actual project being there. It's one of those situations where we've run into in the past where it's like, man, it'd be really nice to have this other zoning district that we could do, because you could take that whole block and zone it and do your setbacks and do this and do that, and where in 5 or 10 years if somebody else wants to redevelop a smaller project that's an acre, they can do it over there to whatever standards we decide are going to fit best. Versus the proposed, and it's got the benefits. The parking is an issue. And I know that, I think Jacob has said before that nobody's actually taken the city up on the parking reduction program or whatever, but if I ran the numbers on that, and I think I'm pretty close, but it comes out between $9.5 million to reduce down to that. And I know that according to that program, you can't go below 50, but if you were to go and reduce 300 spots off of it, you're over 30 years, you're looking at $9.5 million to the city. So, there are things like that. If we want, I know with the CM stuff we just passed, we reduced down to 0.5 requirement, but there's a lot of stuff in here that for me, it's just, I don't know, it's too much of a shoehorn. And that's nothing against the project. It's just that the legal dancing to make it be able to be put there. Because just because you can do something one way doesn't mean you necessarily should do something that way.
It is 3 individual lots, right?
Yes.
There are 3 individual lots as part of this project, totaling a little over 2 acres.
Any other comments? Commissioner Frank?
Yeah. Nathan, I really appreciate that at the beginning you set the stage and reminded us of our role, because it's very, very easy. I mean, I care about every comment that has been voiced, every one of all the feedback. We value it. And what I keep going back to is, I recently went through my orientation. The state of South Carolina orientation for being a commissioner. I've read the comprehensive plan multiple times, and I have gone back to page 43 of our comprehensive plan, 2045, and I find myself completely, I've read it over and over. There are 7 goals and key recommendations. There are 7 of them. This project aligns with 6 of the 7. And so when Nathan reminds us at the beginning that the lens we have to look through is one of alignment, infrastructure, and burden of proof, I keep going back to that. And this project support 6 of 7 of the key goals and recommendations. But I'm not saying this is easy. This is very complex, and I value, again, everything I have heard. I sure wish it was a lot easier to have a neighborhood that was right next to a university, because it was very difficult. So I have a follow-on question. This is really more for Nathan and maybe Jacob, Art. Again, based on my review of the comprehensive plan, I'm seeing the alignment. Is there anything from staff's perspective where you would say the updated proposal does not align with the adopted comprehensive plan?
No.
I mean, I've been poring over it, looking for that very thing. Okay, thank you, Nathan.
Commissioner Yoder.
Yeah, I can ask questions, right?
Sure.
I have a cold, so I'm sorry. So from hedgerow, we've got the 3 stories. At what point does the step up start? You just want to come up? Just for clarification, though.
So the question is, at 3 stories, at what point does it step back?
How far does it go before it steps?
So the building is like 12 to 14 feet, kind of depending on where the property line runs back. And then the second, like the 4th floor step back is an additional 30 feet.
So 30 feet past. So we've got 3 stories, and then we've got 30 feet of roof.
Yeah.
And then we step up to the 4th.
Yeah, so the 4th floor is like 44 and a half feet back from the property line.
Just hold on. So that's North Clemson in the front. It runs along the front where the pickup lane is.
Yeah.
Property line, you got the pickup lane, property line. When does the building elevation start right there? What are we setting back from North Clemson right there at the front?
Yeah, so the property line has a big portion of it is the right of way, so it's not consistent from like the corner all the way to the building. Do you know what the from back of curb is? I believe we included that in the ordinance.
It's so daggone small on these things, I can't see it. I'm already blind.
Yeah, I think it's approximately around 30 feet. There is the property line just with it. Doesn't follow with North Clemson.
Yeah, I think from back of curb is pretty similar.
Are we cutting down? Is the building elevations coming down to North Clemson? Because right now it's way up in the air.
Yeah, so the hard corner of Pine and North Clemson is 6 stories because there's the terrace on that level.
So that's how we're pulling that close to the road. Okay. Hold on, I think I got another 1 or 2. You talked about the trash door. So the sidewalks, we're talking about 10 feet. This is on North Clemson. Just for clarification, we're talking about really kind of shrinking the road.
The roadway width, yeah, that's what we were.
So we're trying to narrow traffic.
Slow it down.
We're not widening it.
Yeah, it's similar. So the best example that I can give you right today, you can drive there today, is we've milled up Berkeley.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, no, me too. And so from essentially what was the bike lane and existing sidewalk now will all be a 10-foot wide path, which is the new standard at DOT mobility path. That will also happen on 93 eventually and North Clemson if this project were to go through.
And we're talking about putting a curb, so we'll have a sidewalk on one side with a curb.
So the back of the current sidewalk will still be the back of the current sidewalk. The sidewalk will go into the road, I guess is the better way to say it.
Right, and we'll have a curb on the other side of North Clemson, so now we're gonna have 2 curbs.
That's right.
Okay. I think there's a lot of misconceptions about how that's.
Yeah, I'm sorry I didn't explain that.
Want to clarify that a little bit. I think that's all I had for y'all, but I did have a zoning question, I think. So I know we're doing sidewalks in multiple areas in the cities right now. In the city, do we have, is Folger or any of those back Are they on a timeline right now for sidewalks, or is anything even possible at this point?
I'd
I
have to
know
check with
it's-
the city engineer. I don't believe so.
No, and
I know it's hard.
there's some reasons for that. Anyone can go on the city website and petition for a sidewalk. That's been attempted several times in some of the streets mentioned this evening and failed because we have I believe it's a 60% threshold of the neighborhood. So it has not ever passed that threshold to my knowledge. I could be wrong. But in the most recent attempts, I know it did not pass that.
It's a hard sell sometimes. A lot of people don't understand what's going on with it.
Some of the streets that we're talking about, and not to single out these streets at all, there are other parts of town that it has failed also. But a lot of times it has to do with, folks in the area have a fence that they want to keep, that's all very valid. Or there are...
You just don't take my property.
Yeah, basically.
Commissioner Cumby.
I think Brian addressed my main question about North Clemson, and I guess just to further that, so because it was mentioned about the green space, Shanklin's Park there, so that wouldn't interfere with that, it would just be the road.
No. I've had to say this several times at recent commission and council meetings, but we won't sell city property, so nothing will happen to the park. We have precedent for not doing that, so the park is preserved by nature of being city property.
Any other comments or questions?
Herb, I have a comment.
Okay. Commissioner Hyatt?
Yes, okay, so I appreciate the comments from the residents, and I can see where the developer listened to the public in the previous planning commission meetings. I want to explain my vote a little bit because there was a reduction to 3 stories on Hedgerow Lane. There was a reduction in density from 725 to 555. And then we continue to have the same community benefit of the sidewalk improvements and water line improvements, even with the reduction of density. So I want to add that I was initially not in favor of this project because of concerns for pedestrians and the density not being in the 93 corridor. Instead, it's like adjacent to it. But based on the developer's response and the changes to the development and then council approving our new comprehensive plan, I've kind of reconsidered my position. And I'm going to go through, just like something that was mentioned earlier, we go through trainings, we read the comprehensive plan, the white paper, land use, I've read books. The higher density development closer to campus and downtown helps reduce traffic. It does not increase it because when students live closer to campus, they're more likely to walk and bike. And it protects our single family neighborhoods because when there isn't enough appropriate housing for students near campus, they encroach on our neighborhoods and move into homes that are for our long-term residents. So in a sense, I know some people feel that approving this development does not protect neighborhoods, but based on what I've read, approving this project protects the neighborhood. And the other thing is that this project is going to connect Pine Street, 201 Pine Street to downtown, and it also connects our local residents to downtown with the upgraded sidewalk, better connects us. And that is good for the economy of downtown. It's good for the businesses downtown that rely on this bike traffic or foot traffic. It's going to improve the economy and help our businesses downtown. So this project to me just makes sense. It's a better use of our existing infrastructure. It's to be more cost effective than just continuing the sprawl. And I want to add that Clemson's growing, and it's not optional. You know, like it's not. This isn't optional. So the real question is, are we going to manage the growth well? And I feel like this project is in alignment with the plans, the comprehensive plan. So that's all I need to say. Thank you.
Thank you. So one of the things, when we take a look at it, the 2045 comprehensive plan, future land use, and I would encourage everybody, hopefully everybody had I know everybody had opportunities over the last 2 years, and part of, when you take a look at the future land use, the properties that's shown on the future land use map in the comprehensive plan to be high-density residential, which consists with proposed development. It's noted, though, that this is referred to at the 2045 comprehensive plan. And so these properties are consistent with that in the future land use part in the report that we got from planning staff, and as well as we take a look at that. So with that being said, go ahead.
Because it's, from you guys, a clarification, because it goes into the high density for that area. That 300 North Clemson that is in this and going to have the same restrictions that it currently has. That puts them over the 2 acres. If somebody develops, buys out and says, you know what, I don't need that property. I'm going to buy out the rest of the townhouses and up Oak Street, and I want to do, a high density residential, whether it's, apartments for adults, kids, whatever we decide goes over there. What happens to 300? We can't take it out of the PD zoning because that would restrict it lower than 2. We would have a dead piece of property on North Clemson Avenue, basically, right?
That depends on a lot of things. You can't say what's gonna happen in the future like that, but.
Well, I'm just asking, what use could it have in the future if somebody redeveloped?
You could do an amendment to the PD.
Okay.
You could rezone the entire property to something that is consistent with how it's developed. You could.
But that's what I'm saying, is somebody doing a project next door or adjacent to this can't really bring that piece of property and develop it into their project because it is part of this project.
Unless the property was rezoned or an amendment to the PD.
Even if the PD was amended, though.
There's ways to do it. I don't know how to answer that any other way.
You're asking what happens to the other townhome development?
What happens to 300 if the rest of that townhome development and the ones up Oak Street, somebody buys that whole block and does a development there? And 300 has the restrictions placed from this ordinance. It can't be lumped into that because we can't take it out of this PD and put into that PD, correct?
Correct.
Or if we get the zoning done that it calls for, we get a designation design and a thing drawn up with rules and regulations and rezone it for this high density that the plan calls for. This piece of property can't be incorporated into that the plan calls for.
It could be rezoned to that new zoning district if the property owner wanted it to be, and it met those standards.
But then that would take it out of the PD, which would make the PD less than 2 acres, which would.
You're not listening to the whole thing.
I mean, rezone the entire PD.
If you wanted to, yeah, you could, theoretically. I mean, there's lots of ways, there's a million different ways to do it. I don't really understand what you're getting at.
I just want to make sure that 300, this all calls for high density residential over there.
Yep.
It's currently
medium
to low. Being a dead piece of property, well, just being a dead piece of property there that has these existing restrictions placed from this ordinance that somebody cannot make good use of in the future.
Okay. I don't know how to, it could be rezoned, it could be amendment to the PD, it could be a standalone, dead property, all options.
Okay, that's what I was trying to figure out. That's okay.
You're asking about the 4 or 5 little individual pieces that are outside of the PD right now, right? Those, what if something happened?
What I'm saying, yes, the rest of that block. So it's like, this is what I said, if we rezone that whole block for whatever, we get this high-density residential zone figured out. Here's setbacks, densities, this, that, and the other heights, and rezone that whole block, then we don't have this piece of property that's weird over here, but we can make it work. This, like, it's like, bam, go do it, and here's the stuff on it. You don't have to worry about that piece of property that's part of this development, but now zoned for this development, having to do a legal dance to get back around and be able to be redeveloped in the future.
I think I understand what you're saying, but yeah, I mean, I'm in agreement with Jacob. I mean, there are ways to utilize that property or not utilize that property, I guess it depends on, like I think in your example, what the purchaser of that property would want to do, how they would want to do it. I mean, it would be, if it was a building similar to this, that would be one scenario. If it was just
So if they wanted to do a higher density, whether that's more townhomes or an apartment building, whatever we decide the higher density, I'm assuming the higher density residential is going to be something other than townhomes. That would leave this piece of property, and they may buy it because I'm assuming they would have to buy it to get the rest of those townhouses to redevelop because it's part of the homeowners association. They would have to all agree to sell. You can't have that end unit stay and take the rest of them down. But then it's got these restrictions on it. And they may say, I don't care if it sits there dead because I'll do the rest of this and I'll make my money off of it and that's fine. It can be whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not obtuse. I mean, there's just so many ways you could slice that it would be, I don't know if I can give you a clear answer except to say there are answers, but there's like 50.
Right, well, that's what, I mean, like, I understand there's ways to do it. I don't know. The idea of including a piece from, I understand that they're individually deeded lots, and all that, but it's a townhome that's part of one existing development to be part of another. I mean, it just seems like that creates more issues versus just creating a zoning for the whole block and being done with it.
I think if you go back and we have to take this as what the project is. The project is a planned development. The project does include this. It was done for that. And if you take a look and then you read the entire zoning ordinance that it says, is they have already pre-agreed if there is a zoning that is very close in nature and it doesn't change the characteristics of the PD and doesn't change the characteristics of being able to be utilized for student housing, that they would conform to that zoning once the city decided that. That's already written into this ordinance. So at that point in time, which we can never predict, they have already agreed to that. And that is inherent as a fact. And if this goes through city council who makes a determination, that's what happens. But we can't speak to things that are not aligned within this, within the future. We can speak in the future as a zoning study goes of what other areas would be zoned.
Right, I'm not necessarily, the future issue is just an example that can be laid out. My issue is just best practice of zoning. Of somebody, I mean, we're rezoning this to PD so that it has the exact same restrictions that it has right now. So we're rezoning it to change nothing. That's kind of the crux of it. It's all, I mean, it's all written out. This stays the same, access stays the same. This project can't use, like, all that's in there. And I don't know that that's good practice to rezone. That's kind of where I'm getting at, is what problems we walk into.
We hear you. I think the comments that I heard from them is that there's not a problem, and that's not a problem that we're facing at this point. The question remains as to this project. Yes, ma'am? Yes.
So, as it relates to the rest of the block, like if the rest of the block were to be assembled, that's like far short of 2 acres, right? That's like 1.5 acres.
Right, but if we rezone that whole side of town across the street, then you have we can get 2 acres to rezone the whole area to something different.
Understood, and part of the reason why that townhome is a part of this project is more to do with the infrastructure that exists there. They were developed at the same time originally, right? So there is some overlap and some shared infrastructure that the new construction needs to address alongside of it. So they do need to, that's part of the reason why they were always brought forward together. But the townhome is, one of multiple owners in that condominium association, as are the ones on Oak Street. So there's multiple other owners that would have to be involved in that if there was another rezoning that were to occur.
Yeah, I understand. I mean, the infrastructure, talking about the detention, you're tying in and removing yeah, I mean, but that's not a zoning concern to be able to do that.
Sure. Part of, I guess, like, the townhome itself is still included in all of the calculations that were provided for the overall zoning, so it's just meant to be compatible with.
So like where you talk about open space and impervious coverage and all that stuff,
Yeah.
that includes the
That's
park.
all, yeah, that is all reflected in the numbers in the ordinance.
Even the bed count, that came up at our last meeting. I mean, this bed is in the bed count.
Right, I knew the beds were, but the open space that's for the residents and these can't access that property, like that was a little confusing to me in there, and I just assumed it was all like, okay, this building is counting for this because that's who can access this stuff. Because the townhouses can't access the community amenities at your building.
Not the rest of the townhouses that are here.
So this owner can, because it's not what it.
It would be part of,
that's
rented out as a part of our project.
So they can, I think what you're reading is they cannot, the rest of the project cannot access anything within the homeowners association.
Right.
That's what you're reading. The residents that live in their property can access everything in theirs because it's part of it.
And realistically, it's probably a community manager that we would end up leasing that townhome to as a benefit to working at the building.
Right, yeah, I mean, I'm not, but it's like I said, it's more of a convoluted zoning. I understand it can, and it's addressed, and.
So at this point, is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I would move that the Planning Commission recommend approval to City Council of the proposed development for 201 Pine Street, PUD-000526-2026, finding that it is consistent with the Comprehensive Plan 2045 and supportive of the goals in the Clemson Next Strategic Plan.
So we have a motion on the table. Do we have a second?
I'll second it. Tanya Hyatt.
Okay, so we have a second. Any other discussion?
I thought we were doing questions earlier, so I didn't really make a statement, so I'll just, make a statement that, like many people here, I live in this neighborhood. I'm not, kind of like Mrs. Pettigrew, I'm not directly beside this neighborhood. I'm affected by another development that's going on now, really 2 developments, so I take all the comments at heart and completely understand the concern. I originally voted against this project. I'm still torn. I'm torn because, the developer did make significant changes, and, a lot of the concerns I brought up last year have been addressed multiple times, and even more than I even probably expected to be done. And then I keep going back to the comprehensive plan that has since been passed. And then, we can discuss the benefit of the community. I think there are significant benefits, as has been laid out. But then I go back to a comment that Mr. Sheldon made that how many times do they have to keep coming back before it gets squished? And, it's really frustrating for me because it is back before us. But, you know, because of the things I've mentioned, I do think they've, you know, I'm leaning to they get a right to go to council with this. And, you know, council can make this decision, and they could go to council no matter what we said. So I just don't want it coming back again to us, and I feel like this is there's enough reasons for this to go before the city council. Again, I'm torn, but I have to put aside my personal problems. Now, I will add, I recommend everybody speak up because changes can still be made. And Mr. Schmidt submitted a letter to us that was not, I think it was not in time maybe. Right. But he did speak today and speak to almost everything in that letter. And I would highly recommend you send that letter to council that was sent to us, because all those items are of utmost concern to me for safety of everybody in this neighborhood. I think a lot of what was brought up were those safety issues. And so if there was any way to address those better, I think it would help. So
I think the other comment, and I'll read, Commissioner Rice couldn't be here. Good afternoon. I apologize for not being able to attend tonight's meeting. I'd like to express my support for PUD 000526-2026 proposed plan development. The proposed plan development meets the requirements for the city's future land use in our comprehensive plan that was recently adopted. It also makes more student beds available closer to campus, allowing for alternative modes of transportation. So at this point, I'll call the question, have a roll call vote. Commissioner Cumby?
Yes.
Commissioner Hyatt?
Yes.
Commissioner Yoder?
Yes.
Commissioner Franks?
Yes.
Commissioner Crowley?
No.
So it is passed that Planning Commission recommends PUD 000526.
You got to vote.
Oh, vote, I'm sorry. I vote yes. PUD 000526-2026 proposed plan development. Move forward to City Council based on the land use and 2045 comprehensive plan. So with that being done, we'll move on to our next item, our next action item. Let me get the paper straight here. Apologize. Here we go. The next is RZNE 00547-2026, proposed map amendment, 209 Hamilton Drive. Jacob?
Okay. So the application in front of you is for property 209 Hampton Drive, which is kind of an island in itself. And I think that we might need to clarify with him if he wants 209 and 202, because they do own both properties. But the property is currently zoned RM3, and they're asking to go to light industrial. The applicant has stated that they're looking to do a security company on it, basically owns a security company, putting up this building, to run that out of. It is adjacent to other light industrial properties, and basically we just continue that. We have no objection from staff's point of view. It's consistent with the comp plan, and doesn't seem to be out of fit with the area. It is already in a architectural overlay district, so even though it was zoned residential, it had, I guess, probably already thought that they could switch over. So it is zoned in architectural overlay district, so we'd have to go in front of the BAR in the future if it ever went forward. Does anyone have any questions?
I don't really have any questions. What I would say is, hey, you did a great job putting this background together. You guys did. I mean, it presents a whole lot of issues because it's either residential, light industrial, or not. And if you look where it is right near the treatment plant, and it's going to be used for security service. Personally, looking at the views where this is located, it seems to be appropriate use for that. That's my comments.
And, you know, it's always important when you're talking about zoning change not to be completely held up with what they're gonna use it for that day, because there are other uses that could go in there. They could do, you know, small engine repair or something along those lines. But it is light industrial, not full industrial. And we do feel that in that zone, in that district, with what it borders up against, it wouldn't, you know, that we don't see a major problem.
Any other questions from commissioners?
I'll just say for any of you that haven't driven out there, this is kind of between Cat Bus and the Public Works building area. It's where you get mulch. So yeah.
Where you get mulch.
Exactly.
Okay, since this is an action item, is there any comments from the public on this rezoning of proposed map amendment to Hamilton Drive? If you would like to speak, please come up. Seeing that there's none, any comments from commissioners? Seeing there are no comments, do we have a motion? Go ahead.
The motion that we approve the RZNE-0000547-2026 proposed map amendment to 209 Hamilton Drive.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Is there a way to go ahead and tag on the other, even though there's not a formal application, or that way it saves them a month of having to come back and reapply for the other piece?
I think you probably can say that if, you know, if that was the intention, that we can do 202 as well.
I think it's appropriate.
I mean, we need to amend that in the motion, or just,
Yeah,
it's on
amend the
record
motion.
now, that counts.
Amended the motion would be cleanest. Just to say that you've taken consideration that if the property owner chooses to include 202, that also gets a positive recommendation from planning commission.
So, you got that?
Okay,
here's what it is. So we're going to vote on the amendment, then the motion. The amendment is to approve RZNE 0000547-2026 proposed map amendment 209 Hamilton Drive with amendment if the property owner wishes to include 202, that be approved as well. That is what's on the floor right now. How many all in favor? Raise your right hand. And Tanya, you say aye?
Aye.
Okay, she may not. Okay. Now we have to vote on the motion, which is now formal, RZNE-0000547-206. Proposed map amendment of Hamilton Drive with the amendment at 209 and 202 included if that was the owner's intention. We'll do roll calls since you're there, Tanya. Commissioner Cummings?
Yes.
Yes.
Commissioner Hyatt? Commissioner Yoder?
Yes.
Commissioner Frank?
Yes.
Commissioner Crowley?
Yes.
I vote yes. It passes. Now we're up to the next item is a proposed text amendment on mental housing standards. Jacob?
Yes. So first I kind of just want to get into, I guess, what you guys have had a chance to review the document. I've gotten a lot of feedback from the commission. I really want to appreciate you all for taking your time on this one. I think this might be one of the more important ordinances that comes in front of the planning commission going forward. Middle housing is what basically is what Euclidean zoning got rid of in the United States. So historically, there was always a mixture of housing types. You would see, you
know, a duplex or quadplex mixed in, you know, neighborhoods and stuff, and you're gonna have to do about which column. In like the 70s, basically, Euclidean zoning, which is named after a town, basically spread throughout the country and really regimented very strictly single family versus everything else, and you know, separated them completely. This is an attempt to, and you know, when people were talking about balance in the city, 85% of the city is zoned for single family zoning only. We are predominantly, almost completely, a single family zone town. So if there's a balance, it's not the balance that people think it is. So this ordinance has a lot of aspects to it. As you know, it's a very large ordinance. I'm going to kind of go through the biggest ones. In RM1 and RM2 zoning districts, it would expand from just being able to do duplexes to be able to do townhouses and up to quadplexes, so up to 4. Now, the thing is, it really gets into standards about breaking up parking lots, appearance, everything needs to go in front of the Board of Architectural Review. There's architectural standards that go with everything, so we're not talking about just doing, you know, making money for developers. It's to change up the type of development we see and make sure the town looks good. Because, I mean, a lot of the best places you've been to, you like that, being able to walk through a town, having it walkable and getting to like stores and stuff. That is actually another aspect of this, is to allow for very small scale commercial at the edges of town. So only on arterial roads and major collectors. So an example of a major collector would be like Issaquena. So you can see in Camelot, with this part of this ordinance would be allow for maybe a little you know, grocer at the corner of Camelot. It would also allow for small offices, like if you want to have a chiropractor or something like that, or somebody who like grows flowers in their backyard to be able to sell those. So it does allow for some commercial, again, with very strict rules, having to go in front of the BZA. Then there's actually, it creates a middle housing zoning district. So it's creating the district, but it's not actually implementing it anywhere. The middle housing zoning district as a concept is pretty high density, kind of similar to our RM4, but it has low occupancy. So it stays the occupancy of 2. The intention of this ordinance is not to create student housing, it's the everything else. Because we have people coming to us constantly wanting alternative styles of development for non-students. So people really want townhouses, like we said, small apartment buildings, those type of things geared towards non-students. And that's what that zoning district and the RM1 and RM2 still stay at an occupancy of 2. So we are basically adding where you can have different types of housing types, but trying to prevent it from becoming student housing. Another aspect of this is an actual affordable housing application process. So it would allow, no from the zoning board, but you would get density bonuses if you do true affordable housing. So we're talking about HUD certified, 80% of median income affordable housing. So again, something that we hear people want. We'll see if the density bonuses are, I guess, juicy enough to encourage affordable housing or not. We'll see. But that is the other aspect of it, is an actual route for doing true affordable housing. Again, it's not going to be going into the R20 and R12 zoning districts. It is, but basically every other zoning district would have that option for an affordable housing district. And with that, do you guys have any specific questions?
Where would this, what kind of place would this go? Would this be like around the circle? Would this be out further?
So, yes. So, then again, there's multiple things. But yes, Dove Circle would be a place where we would now be able to do townhouses and up to quadplexes. We'd have to go in front of the Board of Architectural Review, but that kind of density. Yes.
Well, there's some places on Rock Creek that are kind of similar.
No, Rock Creek is zone R12. It would not apply to them. No, they did. There is a development there in that big field that was approved as what's called a conservation subdivision that sets aside half the land for open space and then does smaller lot development there. If that is hopefully going to be moving forward, but that is a separate thing. But yes.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you for letting me ask.
I think this is, thank you for your work on this. This is one of the clearest I have seen, because in past zoning things that you may not have had anything to do with it. People would say the word affordable housing, but never define it. I think, John, you sent in a lot of comments were really good to help shape the words matter in here. I think this is probably the most comprehensive worded, one of them that I've ever seen come through that is clear to what happens. I think your safeguards with the Board of Architectural Review, as well as your safeguards with the BZA when it comes to parking and things like that, and even to the point of there's no more than 2 cars can be seen whatsoever. I just want to commend you for the job that you guys did in writing this in words we can understand.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we did work a long time very hard on this one, but this, again, is the ordinance that had the most input from the most people. We had public come in and talk to us about it. We had the commission members come into us. This has the most fingers in it, and we're super proud of how it came out, because it didn't come out disjointed. It actually, like, it flows together and everything. This was probably the biggest collaborative effort so far. We hope to see that more, because people got really involved in this one. We're very happy about it.
And I would just commend you all for the work. I mean, this was complex, this was challenging. I think it directly supports the comprehensive plan. I'm just curious, with the density bonuses, I'm just kind of thinking ahead. How do you make sure it truly supports attainable housing rather than unintentionally incentivizing student-oriented housing development? I was just curious about that.
Yeah, so we've talked to the housing authority that we've been working with is out of Anderson.
Okay.
And they do deed restrictions for the affordable housing units that you have to be income eligible. So obviously there's a max, but there's also a minimum, and you have to make that on your own. You can't have signed off on by your parents. So that's how they keep students out of it. But like theoretically, if a student somehow was making that like $30,000 a year, but usually the students are making nothing.
Right.
Or if you take their parents' income,
right,
wouldn't qualify.
Yeah.
So I mean, theoretically, could there be a grad student that was making the 30 grand that might qualify for this? Right. Yes, absolutely.
Sure.
But they're going to be few and far between.
Yeah, thank you. Well, and thank you for entertaining my many questions that I sent in advance. So, it's great work.
So this is an action item. Is there any comments from the public? Seeing that there are none, any other comments from commissioners?
Yeah, I had just a couple for clarification. Okay. And it's got to do with the retail and professional services.
Yep.
So they can be allowed as primary or an accessory use.
Yes.
The parking BZA handles, but it just says they'll determine the minimum and maximum numbers. What standards do we follow for where that goes?
Where that goes? Well, again, because it is very case by case, it's going to be for a very specific use because it's going to be a special exemption. We'll be following ASHTO standards as our initial guideline, but that's the engineering standards. But ultimately, it is going to be up to the BZA as a negotiation with the applicant, because we're going to be trying to keep this as small parking as humanly possible.
Right, I just didn't know that's, since it wasn't listed like, BZA will determine minimum, maximum, and location. It just says they'll determine the number.
Yes, yeah, the BAR is going to determine the location.
BAR will determine the location.
Yeah, how it's all laid out, yeah. So this is going to have to go in front of, like a commercial is going to have to go in front of BAR and BZA in this case.
Special exceptions are. Well, except for if they use an existing, and that's kind of like, it's not a concern, but the question of, okay, if you use it as an existing building, they got to go through, so they don't have to do BAR.
If they're adding parking, they would, because then they're adding impervious surface.
Okay.
Building footprint and all, they would still.
Yeah, they still fall into that.
Well, but if they're, so then does that qualify as a new build, or they have to change
No, it would just be for the parking, just be landscaping standards, how we handle, parking lots now.
Okay,
It's kind of a safeguard trigger in the ordinance.
Well, that was I just want to make sure it wasn't one of those things where it's like, okay, here, the chiropractor can have an office and he's gonna put 3 spots in the front yard right off the road so you can pull in, I mean.
Yeah, all the same standards would still apply that about placement of the things that go toward the normal standards. So you couldn't have, rows of more than 10 spaces without parking lot, can't park in the front yard, can't, all those.
Well, that's not, so like if it was an R20,
The standards still apply.
so they get, you gotta have your parking behind front building line, okay, so the base standards for the zone kind of, okay.
Exactly.
There's one more.
Yeah, we don't anticipate very many of those. I mean, we hope we see some, but it's probably much more likely, like you said, like someone's gonna be selling, flowers out of their, garage.
Right, and that would be the accessory use versus the primary use. Same signs and everything, so, I think that was pretty much it. I mean, the professional services, just as an example, because I know that we just did the rezoning request because there wasn't an office space for that guy, and this works. Is that considered a professional service?
No, because he's gonna be keeping equipment, trucks, and all those type of things there. It wouldn't qualify. Because mostly, if he was just doing consultant work though,
right.
If he didn't have the equipment that goes with it, the storage of that stuff, yeah, he could, theoretically.
Okay, when we talked, that was one of the things where, that's why when you added the definition of this is what retail means, you can't sell gas, you can't do this, that was great, because my definition of retail and yours when we first talked was a little, I think mine was a little more broad than yours.
Any other commissioner comments? Seeing that there are none, is there a motion?
I'm happy to make a motion. I move that the Planning Commission send a positive recommendation to City Council for text amendment 2024-R-03, middle housing standards, finding that it is consistent with the comprehensive plan and provides a needed framework to support attainable housing, neighborhood compatibility, and small-scale neighborhood commercial opportunities.
I think you meant 2026. I think you accidentally said
2026, yeah, thank you.
2026. There's motion, is there a second?
It does say it on here, though. We need to make sure we correct that. Sorry about that. Now I know what numbers mean.
Got a second? Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Commissioner Cuddy?
Yes.
Commissioner Hyatt?
Yes.
Sorry, Commissioner Yoder?
Yes.
Commissioner Frank?
Yes.
Commissioner Crowell?
Yes.
I vote yes. And that moves forward. Is there any advisory items?
No, sir.
Okay, let's go next. Jeff?
Can you back up with maps?
Yes.
And you did see the correction needed up here. It says 2024 versus 2006.
The agenda has it right.
Yeah, the agenda does.
I know, that's why
I apologize.
said
I
it.
should
No,
have
you didn't. Oh, wow.
I do see it now, sorry.
Yeah, that's in the, it was in the.
Has it been working on that long?
I've been working on that for that ordinance was actually started in 2024.
Okay.
I have some maps.
Honestly, the reason why that kind of always takes so long is, I think why it's doing for now is I have to give a lot of credit to our leader, Nathan. As he's kind of said, there's kind of like a big difference between like a manager and a leader. Keeping your eye on like the long-term goals and where the politics should be headed, just reacting to every single application individually is kind of what gives you true leadership. And I think why we're starting to advance these long-held goals of the city, things that we've been trying to do for years. But we're only seeing things playing catch up and not getting ahead of the game, was that clarity of thought and keeping us moving in the right direction.
Well done.
Okay, everyone got that? And I lost the number, didn't I? Well, you want to start when John gets back or start now?
Just wait till he gets back.
you want to give the audience a chance to speak while John's in the bathroom?
Sure.
They want to come up?
You know I'm concerned. That's why I wanted to come, this is one of the reasons I wanted to come tonight. Kelly, do I want to sign for Kelly somewhere?
Oh, sorry.
No, this is not, this is just discussion.
Okay.
There's no action being taken whatsoever.
Again, y'all are messing with the oldest part of the city of Clemson, not including Calhoun. I agree, we're not talking about that. But you're cutting to RM1, North Clemson, and that's Mr. Neary's property across Darwin. Right?
Yes, one of those is owned by Neary, the one right at the edge.
He owns 221.
Yes.
He owns 221, and he's been trying to get the rest of it. I will tell you all that right up front. He's been trying to get Hillcrest. Make a note. Throw it in there too. Luckily, we've got people who won't do that. But you're messing with the oldest houses in the oldest neighborhood in Clemson, and moving it to RM1 just because we're surrounded by rentals. Because we're surrounded by rentals doesn't mean we're going to stay rentals. Or that we want to be, you know. I understand that what y'all are trying to do, but it's not protecting my neighborhood. I'm in it. I'm trying to protect my neighborhood. I'm trying to protect my neighbor who lives and owns right across the street and right behind there. And my friends, the Hardings, own 109 Dargan, and that's going to be right across from them, and they're going to have to stare at it. And it's across from the green space, which we've always said we want to protect. And I know Mr. Neary's property is right at the edge of it. But you put that kind of housing in there, you're going to destroy the green space because the kids are going to run their scooters through it, which is what they're doing now, and they're creating other pathways that the city can't stop them, apparently, because they've created more pathways than they're supposed to be through there. By running their scooters through where they want to run their scooters through. So, considering the buzzards that live there, y'all notice that? We have like 20 or 30 buzzards that live in the green space. They move from Oak Street over to ours and back to Oak Street. They're having a wonderful time. They are protected birds, even though we don't like them. But they are protected.
No, they are protected. She's right.
They make a mess on the street. I
unfortunately know more about buzzards than I ever want to.
I've learned a lot about them since they moved in my neighborhood. I'll tell you that.
They fly, they do change places. They come to my backyard, they go right across, I mean.
They're nesting on one of her chickens right now. There's nothing we can do about it.
Don't shoot them, you'll go to jail, so I know that.
I mean, you know, but, and I understand what they're trying to do, and we understand that that's a rental, and we know that y'all were trying to make that area of town high-density rental properties.
Yeah, can I give a little presentation?
Sure.
Okay, this is not high-density resident rental. So this again is.
But that's where that starts, right there, is the green.
No, that's already zone green. That is high-density. That's
But I'm saying, Mr. Neary is gonna try and push that around.
No, so let me just kind of, yeah, this is taking that out of the, so.
Okay.
What the goal of this is to, you know, like the duplexes that got built on North Clemson?
Oh, yeah.
So that's the kind of density we're talking about.
Little houses.
Yeah, that kind of
That's
density.
cute. I agree with that.
And they would have to go in front of the Board of Architecture Review, they would have to have parking in the rear like they do, but that is the density we're talking about for RM1. Honestly, part of this is like we said, we're trying to head things off before they happen. All the property owners on this, several of the property owners on this road have expressed a want to move to a higher density to do townhouses. They have gotten, the comp plan does call for this to be medium density, so middle housing.
So it would be middle, that might be better for that Valerie who's had to live with her.
Yeah, so this would allow for you to do,
She has to live with a fraternity house next door.
yeah, so the intention of this is we're going to keep the occupancy low, again at 2, because it's not intended to be,
But everybody who's on there right now is grandfathered, right?
they are for now, yes.
Because I'm looking at North Clemson.
Yep, they're grandfathered, what they are
Don't have to change
currently.
anything at all.
but they won't have to change. But if there is a change, it would go under the RM1 zoning district.
Now, didn't 112, North Clemson just change hands? Didn't understand that. Is that, does anybody know that one?
I do not know.
The parking lot.
The park.
Yeah, that property 112 Clemson Avenue.
Yeah, because that was characters that you got.
Security's still alive, he's still right there.
But part of it is we don't want someone coming in and trying to do a PD or something along those lines, trying to go real high density here. So we're being something that seems to be well received by everybody and that will be responsible and make that transition.
So the photos we've shown people of what we're thinking are the two duplexes at the end that we just referenced, and then the townhomes on Thomas Green Boulevard that are in Patrick Square.
Yeah, it follows the design standards from Patrick Square.
So it would be, this,
That's all that can go here.
so it's gonna protect this neighborhood to a certain extent.
I know what was said to the neighborhood during the overlay, that we had these intentions to place the hub here. That was not true at all. So that is not what this does. This does townhomes and duplexes.
Very high standard.
And the other part to tell you, and I was going to mention this tonight when I wrap up with my comments, everybody kept referencing the conservation overlay. It's dead. Council's thrown it out. It's gone.
I knew it was.
It's gone.
Yeah.
Doesn't exist.
Which I'm really sorry, because the people who, we didn't mean to kill it, but we wanted protection for North Clemson and for Addison and for.
No, I get it. Listen, I'm not even complaining. I'm just saying people kept saying that and we were going against things that we recommended, but it's dead.
Well, y'all recommended it.
Right, it's dead.
Unfortunately, I'm sorry it's dead, because I think some of our council members didn't really listen to what we were saying, but they were asleep. So anyway, okay. You've made me feel a little bit better about this, because I was very nervous that if Mr. Neary got a hold of that, and what he would do, because he also owns the boarding house across the street from his property.
He owns that? Okay.
Yeah, he does. So unfortunately, he doesn't make those guys keep it clean, but that's okay.
You mean 112? You talking about?
He wants 160, I think it's 173 on, but that's actually on 93.
And I mean,
Oh, yeah.
I'll be honest.
Yes, a fraternity house, that's across the alley.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Me either.
Yeah, not to have you, we cop on that,
Wing Capos did own some property in Clemson, but he doesn't own that. Now, my understanding is he really bought it from Tom at some point. So I do feel better that it's low density. I can live with it. I really can.
I'll be totally honest with you guys, what will most likely go in here is probably some game day houses. I hate to say it, but you know that's probably what we're get built.
I mean, I'm 73 years old. What am I going to do when I'm home?
But you don't sell it to a developer.
Yeah.
I haven't my son, who's a minister at Fort Hill Club, says I can't sell it. So y'all, we're the same right now.
But you know what? You still his mom.
Anyway, thank you very much. I feel a little bit better about what was coming through. That's one of the reasons I wanted to stay tonight, was to talk about this and make sure we've got some protections.
And feel free anytime to come hang out with me and Jacob.
Yeah.
We'll walk you through all this.
So this next
Y'all remember, I just retired. You might be hesitant to.
So this ordinance will be coming through probably at the next planning commission meeting, and so from the month to then is when we want to get everyone's input. So I'll have a draft for you to come in and take a look at, and if you want to, any comments you want on it, we'd be
I'll
very.
take a draft to my women's group that lives on
That's
Fridays, most of us live in that neighborhood.
Because that's exactly what happened with the middle housing
Yeah, we
district.
love that.
Yeah.
Jacob and I'll come speak.
If you have us, we will.
Well, we just want to socialize, but we do run around, so.
But then you might make it a tax deduction if you have them come speak, and then they get.
I'll talk to them about that. Okay, but that makes me feel a lot better about that.
It's a much lower density than I think's what's been said.
Well, Art had told me that you thought there was going to be some protections coming,
Yes.
and this makes me feel a lot better. I don't know if it makes Linda feel better, but you got to explain it to me. I may do that. Is there any way I can get a copy of that so I can?
Yes, you can have those right there.
And we'll bring
Yeah, let me take one and I can show it. That makes me feel a whole lot better about the neighborhood and what's happening.
We probably didn't do a very good job of explaining at that overlay about how we were trying to get the rest of this stuff.
Right, yeah,
I know, it was,
it was very hard.
Well, it was so hard because there was so much misinformation that got out. It didn't matter what you said.
I know.
I mean, it really did. I mean, it just took off like wildfire, which was the whole idea.
Just stay very close, like it does.
Okay, well, that's honestly,
Herb, this is Herb. Excuse me just a moment. I'm gonna hop off this call and just watch on YouTube later, okay? There's something I've got to go do.
Say it one more time. Okay.
Thanks, Tanya.
Thanks, Tanya.
Thank you.
Everyone else has left the call.
Okay.
Sure.
This is just discussion.
I'm sorry?
This is just for discussion.
Yes, of course. I just want to clarify, do you know what R12 is?
R12 is a residential single-family occupancy of 2 with 12,000 square foot minimum lot size.
Okay, I got you. All right. Okay, so this is really my question. Mike Neary, I think he owns the old Sam's house. I don't know the number.
That's what I was talking about.
Right. And he also owns the, he just bought the Curtin house on 112 on
There was
the
near the building, okay.
Yeah, that's what I've been told. I didn't look it up on time.
This is near his house right here.
Okay.
And he just bought that, but he also owns that.
I got you. Okay, yeah, so he owns about 4 properties on Clemson. So I guess my question was, what if him or somebody else decided, well, what if Mike Neary bought 204 and he added up the surrounding adjacent lots and he got to 2 acres? He couldn't come back here and request a PD, is that what you're telling me?
I mean, he can, but I don't think it wouldn't be favorably looked at. Staff would be, go against that right away.
That can happen today.
That can happen today, yeah.
That could have happened 20 years ago also.
So there's no protection in this that's going to prevent that PD from
It's
happening?
not today, though, it never has been.
Yeah, I guess the protection is that it would be very defensible legally to turn down because he has a very viable use for it. So like by having this kind of fairly moderate density and it follows the comp plan and everything, it'd be a very safe rejection.
Okay, all right, so now, that house is dilapidated, it'll get torn down. So what's the restriction? Is it 35 feet a duplex, 35 feet tall duplex?
Yes, yeah, this doesn't change the height at all. 35 feet is still the maximum height.
Okay, and you could put a duplex, 2 separate buildings or just 1 building and 2?
Well, so it could be townhouses, it could be several duplexes.
So how many duplexes could it be, I guess is my question?
Okay, let me grab out the ordinance.
It's probably an acre. It's probably,
Yeah, I guess, do you know how big it is offhand, or I don't know?
It's
Okay, I'll just tell you straight up. If it's
less than an acre.
Okay, well, basically it's 5 duplexes an acre. So if it was an acre, it'd be 5.
Okay.
But if it's, less than that, it'd be less than that. But I mean, I think if you kind of just eye it, you probably get around
next door to it.
5. If you get say the townhouses, you might have 3 facing Wigington and 2 others on North Clemson with the parking behind it.
Okay, so if you have 1 acre, you can put 5 townhouses on there, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I have to get the exact numbers, but there's ratios, yes.
Okay, so,
But I have to look at it honestly.
okay, so it's not just 2, it's not just like down the end where the old ski lodge was, there are 2 units there. And so they were restricted.
There's a higher density there, yeah.
Okay, so that doesn't fall into the same category.
No, that's RM3. That was developed as RM3.
Right, I got you, that's right.
It's slightly different, but
It's slightly different, but honestly, that density, about that density is probably what you could get, something along similar to that.
Okay, so
But
most
not
of
three bedrooms, because they can rent out to more people, but that's different.
so I'm confused, is it over an acre or under an acre, is there a threshold?
No, nothing to do with it.
Okay, so I thought you
Well,
said.
that's just the density, that's how they rate density.
Okay, so if I wanted to build 5 townhomes, could I put it on that lot?
I don't know, because I'd have to know exactly the
Okay, all right, I'll talk to you later.
Yeah, just come into the office and we'll go through it.
It's less than an acre.
I'm gonna, let's.
Yeah, let's move on.
I want to remind the, I do want to say one thing for the commission.
I know you want to move on.
Zoning. We don't care who the property owner is. We zone.
Right, that's-
zone.
yeah.
It doesn't matter who owns the property, we zone. Whoever owns the property, has the same amount of property rights as the person across the street and the person down on both sides of them. So when we look at zoning, we can't factor in who owns the property. Or we would get in a mess.
We understand that.
Yeah,
But he has a lot of property, and he does a lot of high density stuff that kind of makes the neighborhood nervous, so thank you.
Certainly.
When you're in the house next door to me, and it didn't bother me, because, but, you know, I just used it for the football.
No, that's not even saying.
Did you?
Yeah. We're talking about taking currently R20. Yes. Roll it to a higher density RM1. Yes. Right? And saying that now it would be more defensible if somebody came in and wanted to do a PD there. Reject it, yes. Does it not apply to RM4?
Because RM4, it's called out in the comp plan for high density.
That's specific fine, but it's not a release. I don't understand how it's.
No, this is called out for higher density in comp plan.
I understand that, and I'm not arguing that. I just don't understand how it's more defensible.
Because the comp plan is a governing document.
For higher density.
No, for all uses.
So in our future land use plan, this is what it calls for, that just got changed in the 2045 comp plan. So before, it wasn't called for that. So now, it is saying this is what it's called for. This is a process to get it there.
We're trying to get everything zoned what it's supposed to be zoned, so we don't do anything.
Okay.
Yes.
We need to wrap up.
Yeah, sorry. Okay, yeah, I got a small child at home as well.
Okay.
Moving on to the next item, which is the student housing zoning district. Okay, this is again a concept that we've been hearing a lot of people saying that we want zoning districts specifically for student housing. You don't have anything on this one. Okay. I'm just going to be listening to me talk for a little bit. We are, the initial, what's going to come in front of you guys is a ordinance similar to like middle housing where it is making the zoning district, but it's not going to implement it quite yet. And basically the big points we're talking about are probably occupancy of 4, height of 7 stories, and in very specific situations. So what currently is the 99 Wyatt, Daniel Square, the alumni property there. Those ones, anyone who can get direct access onto Daniel Drive, so basically onto campus, would be able to theoretically go up to a higher height. And we kind of want some input as to what is everyone's comfortable. So if you were to build in that hole and you had say a 100-foot buffer on the backside on the residential, what would you think about for height-wise? Is 10 stories, 14 stories?
What's the crossover for profitability? I mean, we just discussed this with the CM modification where the 5/2 was the cutoff for building profit. I mean,
yeah.
How high would you have to go to make it worth it to convert to all concrete steel?
We're thinking honestly probably close to 14 stories.
That's what I'm saying. Like, let's just start with there. Like, is that the jump that?
Is everyone
You want to say it's 7, you go jump to 14 because nobody's probably going to build in between.
Well, if you go to 14, you will not, because it's so far down in that hole, and I hadn't had anybody shoot it or not, you're not going to look any higher than what you already are there on College Avenue.
Yeah, I'm
you're
not
down there.
And
so if we're looking at student high density housing and a student housing area, and that's what we're saying. Hey, this is from now on, this is where it's going. And once you do that, 14 is reasonable. You go to Purdue, you take a look at what maybe I shouldn't use Purdue as an example. Maybe I should use Blacksburg.
Let's move off that property though. Like, Clemson Next specifically calls out the triangle, which is 76, 93, and 123 as a student housing district. I've had recent conversations with a former council member about, we need to implement this. And so that's what Jacob's saying, and drawing that up for these other areas.
Yeah, that area would now be like 7.
Outside of downtown.
That area would be thinking about 7 stories for the triangle.
Right, but we're thinking about doing one ordinance to put in all of these.
Yeah, it would have, basically, it's this, conditional use standard set up that if you met certain conditional uses, you go up to a certain height, but vast majority of this would be limited to 7, is what we're thinking.
Okay. So, yeah, so base is 7, if you've got direct access to this, or this, then you can get a, okay.
Yep. And we're toying around with parking ratios, that type of thing. Again, might be, based on proximity to campus, that type of thing. Say, if you're this distance, you get to have this parking ratio, this distance, this parking ratio.
That's the interesting thing for the parking is because you bump up so close, and then it's like, all right, if I'm going anywhere, now I got to go out through everything. So you almost, that's one of those situations where you almost want to
abandon from having cars.
Yeah, like
honestly, we might have parking maximums.
I think that's where I want to head is parking maximums. I hear the arguments. I heard them tonight. It's been commonly accepted since the 1970s that 50% parking works. A lot of communities our size and the university are banning parking, period. So I'm not saying it works everywhere. We don't have a magic bullet, but
yeah. So that's gonna be the next ordinance coming to you guys is a student housing driven ordinance. That's it. And we're hoping to get everything kind of straightened out. So I'll have a draft of that out to you this week, and I want all your comments.
Right.
This is consistent with other places that have done student housing districts.
they've done it well. Yes.
Yeah, who have done it well. And so then we aren't going to have everything everywhere.
I mean, we'll probably honestly allow probably over 4 per bedroom, because I guess
that's what I was going to say. Is a lot of these PDs are coming in at 5 or 6.
So we want to accommodate that. And again, it's not. We keep it lower in our mixed use in our downtown, because if it was to be reused as commercial, when you have a 50% park, a 4-bedroom, two parking spaces, it makes sense. So, but this we might do away with that and go up to 6. We don't want to go too extremely high, just because we don't. I talked to the police chief, and he still does not want frat houses there, because then someone could just build a single family that has. We want them to be broken up into apartments. It's safer. It turns into, you can, for 2 reasons: fire safety, obviously, and police enforcement.
Yeah.
Because apartment building, the police can go into the common area. If it's a single family residence that just happens to have 20 people living in it, a police officer can't just go in there.
We can make single family residence not a permissible use in the district, correct?
Your video connection was closed, but your phone is still connected.
We could. We did not do that.
Well, if that's a concern, if the frat house is in this and keep it.
I think we keep I would just be a little afraid of that, because ultimately there's definitely going to be some people who live there. Anytime you rezone it, there's going to be somebody who owns a single family house there.
Well, that would be grandfathered in though, right?
Yes, but a lot of times banks won't loan on something if it's not.
It looks like no one else is going to join this call.
What? Sorry.
Goodbye.
Banks don't like to loan on things.
So if they sold it.
Yeah, or whatever the situation is, yeah. Or
refinance, okay.
Did something happen where they had to refinance. It can get real messy. So we'll think about that, but we will consider that.
So any other future workshops, other events? Thank everybody for your patience. One of the things that we do try to do is ensure everybody has opportunity to talk, and even if we put it at 45 minutes, that discretion is always there to extend that. And if y'all look at the last several years, I've always accommodated that. We'll always continue to accommodate that. And I appreciate all the work that all of y'all have done very much, and I look forward to seeing what's coming through here soon. Next time 1310 will be before us. I can tell you they have submitted to go before the BIR, a by right issue. So we will see that next time. That has already been submitted, so they do have a by right option. And so we don't know what we don't know until we see it. Thank everybody for your time. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
All in favor? All right.